Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back here to the full story on WIAB 103.9 as we start on this Monday morning. And it is definitely a foggy one out there. So if you guys are driving in, as we always do in this early morning, make sure you are driving safe. It seems like everybody around here just doesn't know how to drive in the fog. A little bit of fog, a little bit of snow, they lose their minds. They lose all common sense on how to drive at all. And so please be careful out there, not only for yourself, but for all those other people out there on the road who just can't handle a little bit of fog. But one thing there is a big fog on is in Washington, D.C., as Doge continues its massive work to vastly draw down the federal government. And there's a deadline looming for Elon Musk, the head of Doge, sending out a directive to employees to list their accomplishments, something they've done in the last in their job. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be our first story that we talk about today, as well as some other Doge cuts, including how U.S. aid workers, all thousands of them, are going to be leaving very, very soon, as they themselves get fired, or putting them on leave, firing at least 1,600 of them as they are leaving out. Of course, USAID is one of the biggest targets of Doge because of their really, really crazy spending on some of the stuff that they were doing, with no accountability whatsoever to the American taxpayers. One that's probably needed to be cut for a long time, or at least, like I said, some kind of oversight on the money that is going to that organization. So we're going to talk about that as well. Additionally, there has been a direction to fire all judge advocate generals, the judge advocate generals, so the head judge advocate generals of the United States military forces. Of course, as people know here, I was in the JAG Corps for over 7 years, active duty. And so we're going to cover what that means and what they're doing with that, and whether that's a good idea or not. Also, on the other side of the pond, we like following other elections, other countries' elections, because it has an indication of where the world is going, how the world is viewing things. And what you find out is that, at least in the Western world, right, I can't really say much for the Middle East or China or things like that, or India. But as far as the Western world, which is Europe and the United States, North America, essentially, with the Western world, they tend to follow very similar political paths. And recently, they just had German elections. So last year, we've covered the French elections. We talked about Marine Le Pen for a long time, as well as the EU elections. And now the German elections have shown another more shift to the right. And we're going to talk about the parties that are gaining power there from these last elections. Again, this growing movement of sort of really what's driving it is a lot of illegal immigration, right? As countries in Europe are also tired of people just coming in, just these open borders, taking people's jobs, creating dangerous situations in their country. And again, it's not just something that has been limited to the United States. It's been this crazy push by leftists throughout the world to, for some reason, have open borders. It doesn't really make much sense. I guess, again, they all wanted more voters or something, but it definitely hurt their country, especially in a place like the European Union, which already has free movement within the European Union. So if countries within that union don't secure their borders, once they get into one, they can freely move about all the others, which has definitely caused some issues, especially for a country like Germany, which is the biggest producer in the EU, pretty much the one that bankrolls most of it. Sort of like how we bankroll NATO, they pretty much do a lot of the bankrolling for the EU. So we're going to talk about that as well as we continue going forward. So pretty much Doge in Germany, the things we're going to be talking about, not necessarily related. But what is related overall is this conservative movement that's not just limited to the United States, which I think is important to talk about. All right, so that's today's show, or at least the plan for today's show. Hopefully, we get to most of that. If you want to call in at any time, the number is 601 879 0002. We're, of course, streaming live on YouTube and Rumble. As I talk about there, it's great on the live streaming because during the breaks, when we get phone calls, you get to hear them there on the live stream, and you don't have to worry about FCC regulations on there, which means we can have some pretty good conversations over on the live stream, as well as seeing different videos and things like that on there as well. So again, that number is 601 879 0002. So keep it tuned here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. Sorry, I get my microphone set there. It's like this arm on the microphone has there's one place I want to put it, and it can never actually go to that one place. But we get to our first story this morning. So confusion and chaos now loom as hundreds of thousands of federal employees begin their work week on Monday, facing a deadline from President Donald Trump's cost-cutting chief Elon Musk to explain their recent accomplishments or risk losing their job. So Department of Government Efficiency Chair Elon Musk announced that federal employees must report their accomplishments from the last week or face losing their jobs, which has roiled the federal workforce as some Democratic lawmakers and unions call on employees to flout the directive. You do so at your own risk. So Musk said on a Saturday that federal employees would receive an email directing them to list their accomplishments from the week prior, with the Doge leader adding later that day that the assignment should take less than 5 minutes to accomplish. Employees have until 11:59 p.m. today to send the list or lose their employment, according to emails regarding Musk's directives that were sent by the Office of Personnel Management. Musk wrote on X, quote, "Consistent with President Donald Trump's instructions, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. To be clear, the bar is very low here. An email with some bullet points that make any sense at all is acceptable. Should take less than 5 minutes to write," Musk added, which I find is very interesting. Should be... it kind of reminds me of the SNL skit of it's a Jeopardy. It's like, hey, just write anything, just anything at all, just any word, and they still can't do it. That's essentially the federal government. I'll see if I can pull up that clip before the end of the. If we can find that clip to pull that up for you guys, because it's a great clip, and it reminds me of that when he said, to be very clear, it's very, very low. That make any sense at all. That's all you do. Just put a couple bullet points that make any sense at all. I know that's a tough thing for a lot of federal employees, but you should be able to get at least that much done, if nothing else, right? Just that little bit. If you can do that for me, then we should be good. So Musk's message followed President Donald Trump's remarking that he's been pleased with Musk and Doge's work investigating various federal agencies for government overspending, fraud, and mismanagement. But he would like to see Musk get more aggressive. Then Musk responded on X, quote, "Will do, Mr. President." That's pretty crazy, the fact, thinking of how aggressive Musk has been. And Donald Trump says, you know what? Even more aggressive. Take it up to another level. Another 10% more aggressive, Musk. Another 20% more aggressive. Let's get it done. So it's a very interesting that Donald Trump says, I want more. And then Musk is definitely going, will do. We can do that, Mr. President. Now, unions lambasted Musk's directive that federal employees detail their work accomplishments to Doge, with a chapter of the National Treasury Employees Union, which represents FDA employees, telling members they, quote, strongly encourage them to flout the order. He says, "We work for HHS, FDA, not OPM. OPM directives that have not been formally adopted or communicated by employer, the FDA, do not create an obligation for you to respond." The chapter's website stated in bolded all capital letters, "NTEU advises you not to sign that email until we get more info." Well, again, you do so at your own risk. It's not that hard, right? All you got to do is just list 5 accomplishments in bullet points. That's all you got to do. Just send it. I mean, if you're an employee, right, it's like you've seen them just fire people. We're going to talk about USAID in just a second. But you've seen them just wholeheartedly fire all probationary workers with a flick of a finger, right? And all this is doing. So this is, Musk is not an idiot, right? This guy has done several companies, right? He's run several companies, some very successful companies, mind you. So this gives them a reason to fire them. I gave you a directive, you didn't do it, you're fired, right? Real simple. And so if you're an employee, right, if you're a federal government employee, my advice to you, right, would be you better freaking send it in, right? Just to be safe, right? Just to be safe, just send it in. Are you going to be like, I'm gonna stand on my high horse right here? We're gonna send your high horse all the way to the unemployment line if you want to go down that road, because Musk and Donald Trump are not afraid to do it, right? He is not afraid to go through with it. So you really, really want to test that, right? And sure, you're going to believe your union, who's going to what, sue in federal court, and then it's going to take 3 years, and you may or may not get your job back. That's a little bit of a risk, if you ask me, right? So maybe take a step back and you're like, just send 5 bullet points, man. It's not that hard. Just do it, right? And again, how bad is it that these unions are like, we don't have to follow a directive. We don't have to tell what we've done. It's not that hard. He's not asking for a treatise on what you've done. Bullet points, just something that makes sense. That's what Musk said. It doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be a full job posting like you would put on that, right? All your responsibilities and all your goals are like an evaluation, right? Have you ever done one of those federal evaluations? You've been a federal employee or been in the military, right? You know, like you have these evaluations, like list your accomplishments. You have to do that every year, and it's like this whole formal thing. I mean, have nothing else, right? Every federal employee that I'm aware of, the vast majority. I'm not going to say everyone because I don't know about everyone, but the vast majority, at least the ones I've worked with or have had to manage. They have to put in a yearly report where you can have a yearly evaluation. So it's essentially they call it a support form, and you get it, and then you can evaluate them. If nothing else, just copy and paste it, right? Just do whatever you did then, update the date and put it on there, right? Just keep yourself safe. I don't understand this. We're gonna take a stand right here. All right. Well, if you take the stand, that union is not going to be there for you when you're in the unemployment line with everybody else, right? Because they are not afraid to fire your butt. They've been very clear about that, and they have going to take it to you. In fact, I want to share this. If you're on the live stream, I wanted to share this picture because this is while at CPAC this weekend. Elon Musk was up there, and the Argentinian president presented him with a chainsaw, and it's just the greatest thing ever. With him just holding this chainsaw up at CPAC like he's about to take it down. He is about to go after all of this, and that is what he's doing, right? He is taking a chainsaw to the federal government, cutting wherever needed, right? There's nothing. He's not holding back. He's not. He's doing it wholeheartedly across the board. What some people think, hey, maybe too much, but hey, this is what's needed. As I've talked about before, we got to cut down inflation, and the way to cut down inflation is we have to get to the cuts. So, sorry about that. So this is what is just has to be done because it's just gotten so bloated. So the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Everett Kelly, also released a statement on Saturday evening arguing that Musk and the Trump administration were showing their, quote, utter disdain for federal employees and the critical services they provide to the American people. And again, that's not what they are doing. They're not showing. It's not showing we don't like the services that they provide, right? It's just that it's been over bloated for so long, right? Again, Musk did this with Twitter. When he bought Twitter, he fired like 80% of the workforce. I don't remember what the number, but it was up there, right? It's like 80%. And Twitter still functioned, right? It still continues to function as X now. But the thing is, what he found out is that you didn't need all those people. And that's especially true with the government. The government should be as efficient to have as few people as possible to complete the job. Again, this is not a private business, right? This is not here. This is not here to benefit the workers, right? This is here to benefit the taxpayers, the American people. And therefore, it should be as efficient as possible because the American people are giving over their money to the federal government in good faith, and the government should use that money in good faith. But that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened for a long, long time, right? And again, it's created this culture of, have 5 people do the job that one person could do, right? Which is just not needed. And so it's not that we want to cut services. It's not that we don't respect the services they provide to the American people. It's just that we think it doesn't take 5 people to do a single job, right? It takes one person to do a single job, right? And it's like, how many people does it take to change a light bulb? Well, in the federal government, it's been about 5, right? We're taking that down to 1 or even less than 1, so that one person can actually change more than 1 light bulb, right? So we can say actually take it down even further than that to like a quarter of a person to change a light bulb, because that one person can change 4 light bulbs in a day, right? Just as an example. And that's what they're looking at. And that can happen without any kind of limits to the services. Now, that's not to say as they do all these cuts, that, hey, they'll find out there's some gaps. So, we cut too much here, so we can hire people back to get in there, right? But I think what you're going to find out is that's going to be a very, very rare instance. And also, too, cutting out that bureaucracy, the red tape, right? Because it's like everybody has 4 bosses. That's always been a joke with the federal government, right? Is that everybody has 5 or 6 bosses, and they have to answer to so many different people, and that's just it just creates more and more wait time because 5 different people have to review something, right? It's like, is it really necessary to have 5 people review it, or can one person do it? So in actuality, it's not only going to spend more money, but it's going to make it more efficient altogether, just like a company has to do, right? Because when a company pays that out, we have to look at, all right, how can I get this amount done and still be profitable, right? And again, it's not. I've said this before, right? It's not the federal government's job to be profitable, but it's even more important for it to be good stewards of the money that it gets. And when is the last time the federal government has been a good steward of our money? I don't know, right? It's probably been a long, long time. And like I said, it's created a monstrosity in Washington, D.C., right? It's nothing less of a monstrosity in D.C. And it's time that the apple cart was overturned. Again, like I said, that was the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, also said it is cruel and disrespectful to hundreds of thousands of veterans who are wearing their second uniform in their civil service to be forced to justify their job duties to this out of touch, privileged, unelected billionaire. My question is this: so that this is the common thing. Oh, you're going to hurt. So you're going to hurt the children. You're going to hurt the veterans. You're going to hurt the veterans that are wearing the second uniform. It's like, veteran or not, you should be able to say what your duties are, what you have done. And again, he's not asking for a lot here. Just tell me what you've done in the last week. It's not that hard, right? Just tell me what you've done. And that goes to show you, though, how bad it is. Because I think a lot of them can't tell you what they've done in the last week, right? Maybe that's why they can't. That's why they're so afraid, because they can't actually tell you. They can't tell you what they've done. And that's the problem. And that's going directly at what Elon Musk is ready to get rid of. And if you can't tell me what you've done in the last 5 weeks, in the last week, 5 things you've done in the last week, then we don't need you, right? You're gone. You're out of here. Heck, we have so at our at the uniform company that my family runs, we have this great employee, and that she helps run the business, and she could tell you 5 things she's done in the last 30 minutes, right? 5 things that have helped that company in the last 30 minutes, if even probably less, probably in the last 10 minutes, she could probably tell you. And this is Elon Musk is asking 5 things in a whole week. Right, 1 thing a day, right? Heck, you could have done all 5 of them on Friday if you want to, but 5 things in a week, right? That is a very, very, very low bar. Okay. In fact, again, that wouldn't pass even in a private setting, right? That wouldn't pass over at Tesla or at SpaceX if his engineers or his people can only say 5 things they've done in 1 week, right? So that's a very low bar. And so that's some of the unions, but some politicians have been even more vulgar than that in responding to it. So Illinois Democratic Representative Sean Casten posted on X on Saturday evening, quote, "This is a good opportunity for mass civil disobedience." Wow, that's a lot. Musk has no authority to do this. Encourage all federal employees to report to work. Encourage all federal employees to get to work, prepare GFY letters, and continue to demonstrate the public service and patriotism he lacks. And GFI, if you don't know, and I didn't know, I had to look it up, stands for Go F Yourself. That's what GFY stands for. He continued on X, "It marks a remarkable combination of arrogance and stupidity to think that this is the best use of time for our intelligence officers, VA workers, air traffic controllers, and everyone else we depend on to do their job well." Yeah, I think it is a good use of the time. Again, it doesn't take long. He even said that anything. I'm not asking for a lot here. I'm asking for the bare minimum, 5 things. It'll take you a minute to write that, right? Just somewhat coherent. He didn't even say it had to be good English, right? Somewhat coherent, right? Just something that you have done, right? 5 things. That's it. And again, the fact that they are fighting this as hard as they are really is an indication that they can't put it together. They can't tell you 5 things that they have done in a week. Otherwise, make sure, whatever. And they keep wanting to go on. Musk doesn't have the authority. That's right. Musk doesn't have the authority himself, but he is the advisor to the president, and he does, right? And that's why Trump has him there. And Congressman Casten wasn't the only lawmaker to offer a vulgar reaction to Musk's directive, with Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota raging on X, quote, "This is the ultimate," I can't say that word, but it's a bad word, boss, move from Musk, except that he isn't even the boss. He's just the first word of we'll just say Dick Cheney's first name, and she's using it not as a name. We'll go with that way. Smith continued her post writing, quote, "I bet a lot of people have had experience like this with a bad boss. There's an email in your inbox on Saturday night saying, 'Prove to me your worthiness by Monday or else.' I'm on the side of the workers, not the billionaire a-hole bosses." Again, that's all I'm asking. It's not that hard. In fact, here's the thing too, right? That's also kind of show you, I would say, again, in a business, I wouldn't have to ask my workers that question because I know, right? Because their contributions are quite evident, right? But for a lot of these federal workers, their contributions aren't quite evident. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm not saying that they have to have work that's absolutely evident, but you should be able to defend your own job. You should be able to get up there and say, "Hey, why are you here?" Right? Which reminds me of another clip from Office Space where they're asking the guy, "Tell us why you exist." And he's like, "I'm a people person." I'll have to pull up that clip too. It's a lot of great clips I'm gonna have to find over the next commercial break, because it is again, it goes directly to this. All right. Speaking of that break, we're gonna go ahead and take our next one here. And again, if you want to call in during the break, number 601-879-0002. When we get back, I'll have at least one of those clips for you that go directly to this. I think it's hilarious. And then we're going to get into the German elections. And I didn't have time to really go into the U.S. aid workers. But again, what I think the thing with the U.S. aid workers is the fact that he has put U.S. aid staffers, 1,600 of them, on leave, which I think is just indication to those who don't want to fill out this directive by Elon Musk that if you don't do it, you're gone, right? And he's not afraid to do it. Sure, if you want to sue, go ahead, have fun. And This is after we talked about a little bit this on Friday, after the federal judge allowed the administration to move forward with its plan to essentially pull thousands of the U.S. aid workers. That was U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols, who rejected the pleas in a lawsuit from employees to keep temporarily blocking the government's plan. And again, at the end of the day, they have the authority to do it. And if you don't like it, then you might as well just get out. You should have taken the payout when you had the chance. Okay, like I said, we're going to take our next break right here. If you can call in during the break, number 601-879-0002. We keep it tuned to the full story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. And before we get to the German elections, I just had to play this clip for you from Office Space because it reminded me a lot of what Elon Musk is doing. Because it's essentially he is the efficiency experts of very much the of Office Space. So if you're not familiar with the movie Office Space, just to give you a little bit of background, essentially it's a movie about the cubicle working firms of the 1990s. These software firms essentially, and they have these efficiency experts that come and decide who should be fired, and they do these interviews of everybody. And it reminds me a lot of what's going on now. And this is it. This is one of the interviews they're doing with one of the workers right here.
What you do at Initech is you take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers.
Yes, that's right.
Well, then I just have to ask, why couldn't the customers just take them directly to the software people, huh?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers.
So you physically take the specs from the customer?
Well, no, my secretary does that, or the fax.
So then you must physically bring them to the software people.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Okay. Sorry, I had to drop one of those words there, but that's essentially what I look at when I think of Elon Musk is that particular movie, and that scene there as I hear this last one, because that's essentially what he's doing. Just tell me what you do. What do you actually do here, federal worker? Just tell me, right? 5 things. Just give me bullet point 5 things to tell me what you actually do. And just like that guy, they can't tell you. They can't actually break it down. They can't say what it is they actually do. And that is so when I saw that from Elon Musk, that scene from that movie, I think really is a great example of what Doge is doing, and just the failure of the federal employees, which are also there. But the election of more conservatives is not just something that is, or the growing election of conservatives is not just a phenomenon that we're seeing here in the United States, as Germany just had their election, as both their mainstream conservative party and the further right party have both gotten more seats in their essentially their Congress equivalent. So that was so Germany's mainstream conservatives are led by Friedrich Merz, have warned. God, I can't get words out this morning. Friedrich Merz won. That's a tough 3 words right there in a row. Friedrich Merz won Germany's national election. But the far-right anti-immigrant Alternative for Germany, AfD, surged to become the nation's second largest political force, gaining from a backlash against the high numbers of migrants and refugees the nation has absorbed following the last decade in a string of extremist attacks that have shaken its sense of security. That's the country's sense of security. Merz, who is promising to unite Europe in the face of challenges from Russia, is expected to become the country's next leader. His first comments on today is Monday, after his party became the highest vote getter in national elections, were words of support for Ukraine, which is marking the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. He posted on X, quote, "Europe stands unwaveringly by Ukraine's side. Now more than ever, it holds true. We must put Ukraine in a position of strength. And if he wants to do that, I think that's great, right? As long as it's not us. If Germany wants to say, hey, we're going to put our money behind Ukraine, please do. Have at it. Have fun. Who am I to tell you what to do? If that's going to be your foreign policy, I hope you love spending that money. Of course, they can't spend nearly the money that we are giving them, but go for it, Germany. Please do. At least they're in the same continent as you, right? At least they have some kind of connection that we don't have. So if Germany wants to step up, go ahead. So he said for a just peace, the attacked country must be part of the peace negotiations. That's obviously an apparent rebuke of the Trump administration. But again, it's like this. Okay, then we'll just hand it to you, Germany. Have fun. Fine with me. I'm all for that, right? They want to take a leadership role in it. Go ahead. You go negotiate to your heart's desire as you pay for that war to keep going, and then see how long you pay for it, right? See how long you can give them hundreds of billions of dollars. They can't even touch that because they don't have that kind of money. Germany is a rich country. Don't get me wrong, but it is nowhere near what the United States is as far as money wise. So it's going to be a huge cut to Ukraine regardless. So if they want to do that, I say go ahead, have fun, more power to you. Go if they want to send troops down there. Germany hasn't had a very good track record in going against Russia as far as 2 world wars. And I've talked about that last week again, why Ukraine cannot win the war. Why there is no path to Ukraine winning this thing, because even the Nazi Germanys couldn't defeat Russia. Again, not because Russia is great fighters. They've always been horrible fighters. They suck at being soldiers, right? They're just bad at it. But they just use life like it's just folly, right? They can just continuously send people in and get millions and millions of people killed. They don't care, right? Plus, it's cold and miserable. And that's why they were able to defeat the Nazi army, despite the fact the Nazi army was better equipped, better trained, and all around better soldiers than the Soviet army. But 10-1, I don't care how good you are, you can't do it, especially on their territory. And it was very surprising to a lot of people in World War II too, how the Germans would just raise their own farms and their own villages as they retreat. Like, it was crazy. It just blew their minds that they were doing that to their own people. And it's pretty bad when it surprises a bunch of Nazis. If you're surprising Nazis in what you're doing, that's aggressive. And so, so if Germany wants to do another showdown with Russia, go ahead, my friend. Have at it. Maybe you want to, maybe on the rematch number 3, it'll work out better for you. What do I know, right? But you're not going to get it. You're not going to get any help from us. That's, I think, is the bottom line. But like I said, this is not just him. So he's, like you said, they're like middle right, but the further right party has also gained quite a bit, a lot of seats. So Mertz's Conservative Party won 208 seats in the 630 seat Congress. I can't say, it's like Bundestag, is what they call it. While AFD won 152. So that puts them above the old Liberal Party, which is the SDP, which fell to 120 seats. So AFD was jubilant on Saturday. That's the far right one. With leaders vowing to become the country's main party in the next election as its appeal expands. The party has established itself as a significant political force in the 12 years since it was founded. But it has not yet been part of any state or national government because everybody else has kind of distanced themselves from that party. But they're gaining, now they're the second biggest party in the government. So essentially, this middle right party is going to form a coalition, they think, with the liberals to try to defeat the far conservatives over there. But they should really look. It's like, hey, these guys are gaining seats. Maybe we should take heed. Maybe we should look at what's going on. So this is what they're going to say. They're trying to have a firewall against the rising AFD. And other parties say they will not work with the AFD, which is under observation by the Domestic Intelligence Agency for suspected right-wing extremism, something the party objects to strongly. Sounds very familiar over here, right? They start investigating you, investigating you. They just call you every single word under the sun. But this is, like I said, a big part of this is coming from the anti-immigration that is going on over there, because again, they have just taken in hundreds of thousands of migrants that has just ruined the country. And they've had, if you can remember, they've had Christmas market bombings and terrorist attacks, and people are getting tired of it. And that's why you see the leadership or this rise in the AFD. And they continuously rise despite being such a young party. And the people who are ahead of that need to take heed. Okay, we're going to take our last break right here. When we get back, we'll do This Day in History. But keep it tuned to the full story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 as we get to this day in history. So this one's not very sexy, but it affects almost everybody's lives because on this day, February 24th, 1582, the Gregorian calendar was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII through the papal bull Inter Gravissimus. It was designed to correct inaccuracies with the Julian calendar, which had been used since 45 BC, but had drifted about 10 days off track due to a miscalculation in the length of the year. The Julian calendar assumed a year was 365.25 days, but the actual solar year is 365.2425 days. That may not seem a lot, but over the centuries, this small distance led to significant errors, especially affecting the date of Easter, which the church wanted to keep in line with the spring equinox. So, to realign the calendar on October 4th, 1582 was followed by October 15th, 1582, effectively erasing 10 days. And unlike the Julian system, which had a leap year every 4 years, the Gregorian calendar skipped leap years and century years unless they were divisible by 400. So, for instance, 1700 and 1800 were not leap years, but 1600 and 2000 were. Soon, Catholic countries like Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy adopted it quickly. And then in 1752, Britain and its colonies, including America, switched, skipping September 2 through 14th, 1752. And in 1923, Greece was the last European country to switch. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. We will be out tomorrow, but we'll be back for the rest of the week, hopefully. But until then, my name is Matthew Bishop, and you've heard the full story.